when I was 19, university, I met with two entrepreneurs who'd started a business. They asked if I wanted to join, and I had to decide, hardest decision in my life, go take this six-figure investment banking job, traveling around the world, or own 30% of this startup and make $300 a month. I'd rather know and fail than not know. So I'll just do it and see what happens.
Hey guys, welcome to this special episode of The Passionate Few as we sit down with one of my favorite YouTubers, none other than Evan Carmichael. This guy's got so much research when it comes to YouTube, it's insane. And he's reached millions of people around the world and has tested almost everything you could imagine. So when it comes to learning about YouTube, when it comes to learning about how to believe in your dreams, and when it comes to reaching millions of people, there's none other than the man, the myth, the legend, Evan Carmichael. Thanks so much for being on the show today, Evan.
Thanks for having me, man. And listen, you're one of my favorite YouTubers too. So this is great. We can make this collab happen.
Now, before we get started, I just want to give a quick and huge shout out to our sponsor, Monetization Technologies. You see, the truth is, if you're a business owner going into 2023 and you're concerned with either having a cybersecurity breach, the frustration with finding IT solutions to your challenges, or you're just spending too much money on it, well, you're in luck because Monetization Technologies can help you with exactly that. Want to find out more? Simply book a call in the description down below for your free cybersecurity assessment and IT audit.
Awesome, man. And you know, it's funny, you guys do so much motivational and inspirational content from some of the world's greatest thought leaders. And I always, came up watching your guys' stuff, and that inspired me to do my channel. And so it's so funny, fast forward years later, to see you guys using our content to repurpose it. And I'd be like, oh crap, that's my video or that's my interview, so it's an honor to have you guys feature our stuff and help reach more people, man. So thank you for the work you do in the world.
Cool, man.
Yeah. So before you got into YouTube, let's give the audience a little bit of context, because you started very early on. There's been a trend the last couple of years, a lot of people get into YouTube, but you've been at this a lot longer than most people in the personal development space, certainly. So kind of walk me through, how did you end up going from, kind of your background, if you could give us a little bit of context there, into your first foray into YouTube? What was that like?
Sure. And I'll go quick, and you can tell me if you want to dive deep into anything and pull on that thread.
Yeah.
Growing up, I always thought I wanted to be a banker. I loved making money, and I thought that was my ideal job. And when I was 19, university, I met with two entrepreneurs who'd started a business. They asked if I wanted to join, and I had to decide, hardest decision in my life, go take this six-figure investment banking job, traveling around the world, or own 30% of this startup and make $300 a month. Mm-hmm. And I thought, you know what? I'd rather know and fail than not know. So I'll just do it and see what happens. I can get another job in a year. It may not be the same job, but whatever. I'll get another job if it doesn't work out. Right. But I had to know. And we struggled a lot, a lot of doubt, a lot of insecurities. I was, making no money and was too embarrassed and ashamed to ask my friends for help. Mm-hmm. Whenever they wanted to go out for a party or pizza or beer, that $20 would be my entertainment budget for the month. Right. So I was, too ashamed to ask for help. And eventually we came out of it. What's that?
How old were you at the time?
That was 19.
Okay.
Yeah. So 19, 20, like the first year of having my business. Mm-hmm. And I was working every day, right? It wasn't that I was kind of working on it. No, I turned down the job to go work on my business, and working every single day from sun up to sundown from my business partner's dining room table at his little apartment. And we just weren't seeing any kind of traction or results. And it got to the point where I just decided I quit. I can't keep doing this. I can't keep showing up every day and just not getting any kind of results. And it,
how long did you work at it before you quit?
I don't know, maybe a year. And I didn't actually quit. I just said I quit. And then the next day I went back. But that was the worst day of my life, because I couldn't believe that I had said that I quit on something I cared about. There's something that you don't care about and you quit, who cares? But I was spending the everyday work on this, Omar, and just, I couldn't believe that I had said I quit. And so the next day I decided I can't quit. I just have to find another way to stand. I felt like if I quit now, I would regret it. And I thought, when I'm an old man at 40, I'm going to regret it. And now I'm 41. So realize it's not that old when you're 41, but I was 19 at the time, and 40 seemed to be like old, man. Yeah. Exactly. It's, I can't imagine falling apart at 40, When I'm an old man at 40, I'm going to regret not continuing on my dreams. And so I had to find another way to stand. And the thing that actually saved my company was I asked myself, who's done this before? Like, I can't be the first person to do this before. And I had a software company. And so the first software person I could think of was Bill Gates. So looked at, how did Bill Gates get started? Started right now. Like, how does he make an extra $1 million? I didn't care, but 0 to 1, because that's what I wanted to do.
Right.
And I looked at his story. I applied the strategy to work for him, and I quickly got my first deal for $13,500.
What was the strategy, if you don't mind sharing?
Partnerships. So if you look at Microsoft, how they started, they blew up when they made the deal with IBM. So IBM was the biggest computer maker at the time. Every IBM shipped had Microsoft software on it, and that blew the company up.
And they paid them
Microsoft,
per unit, right? Like X amount of dollars per unit that Windows was installed on or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Every computer shipped had Microsoft software on it, and they paid Microsoft to make that happen. So that was a huge deal. But Microsoft was already a $7 million company when they made that deal. Now, it put Microsoft on the map, but it was still 7 million more than what I had, at the time in my company. It's like, how do you go from 0 to 7? Because I wanted to do that. I'm not worried yet about building a $1 billion company. And it was still through partnerships, just smaller ones. So the idea was basically, hey, find people, instead of me trying to go get the customers one at a time, find the people who already have contact with the customers and work through them. So I said, you know what? I got nothing else to lose. Let's give it a shot. And quickly got my first deal for $13,500. And that may not seem like a ton of money, but man, back then that was gold. It's like, finally I hit the jackpot, 13.5K. And more importantly, I had a model that I could follow again and again and again. I could get more of those kinds of deals happening. And then our company started to take off. Finally, we sold the company a couple years later. I went into venture capital, started a website, then started a YouTube channel. I'm a big believer that your purpose comes from your pain. So whatever you struggled the most with as a human is what you want to help other people with. And so because I struggled so much as an entrepreneur, I wanted to make the path a little bit easier for other entrepreneurs. And how did I do it? Well, I modeled success. I modeled Bill Gates' success. And so what have I done for the past 20 years now is just share the stories of super successful people and what you can learn from them. I like YouTube the best because I'm a visual learner. I'd much rather see it happen than read about it or listen to it. Right. And so I started with my website, and we built that up and had 6 figures in terms of page counts and SEO and optimizing and all that. But I wanted something visual. And when YouTube came around, I wasn't that smart. I've been doing this since 2009, but I didn't know. It wasn't like, Omar, I'm going to tell you, YouTube is going to be the thing. I had no idea, dude. It was
there
just
no examples at that time. So it was hard to have proof of concept, right?
There were no examples. There's nobody in thought leadership for sure. Most of the videos were really short meme kind of videos. If you think about what TikTok is now, although not even for inspiration, it was more, here's my day going to the zoo, and here's what I had for lunch, and old man falls down the stairs, and just really stupid stuff, nothing educational at all. But it was the only place for video at the time. So I started making videos there. And the first 5 years, I went from 0 subscribers to 9,000 something subscribers in 5 years of making content. And then in the next 5 years, I went from 9,000 to almost 2 million. And now we crossed 3 million. And that was partly me getting better because I was shy, introverted, didn't want to be in front of the camera, didn't want to be famous, none of that stuff. I thought that was, you had to have a big ego to do all that stuff. And also YouTube catching up, and that now people go to YouTube to learn. Now people are going for education, where back then it wasn't even a thing. So I was maybe way ahead of my time, but not in a really smart or strategic way. It just kind of fell into it that, hey, this is the only place to make visual content, and I want to share my message. And honestly, at the time, if 50 people watched my video, I'd be jazzed that 50 people watched the video, and somebody else is hopefully learning and not struggling as much as I did.
Was there AdSense revenue a couple years in? When did that start kicking in and start being something that kind of was on your radar? Because I'm with you about the views. When I started the channel, I literally did not care about money. To me, it was a passion project. It was just, I had my, production business, and I just wanted to do something on the side that was meaningful. And so I started doing it. So I'm curious from your perspective, you started YouTube in 2009, and, when money's not involved, you can appreciate the value of every single individual. When did you notice the transition of AdSense kind of popping on your radar and being like, oh, wow, like, I guess I could make money with this? Like, when did that happen?
I'm not sure. It's a great question. Nobody's asked me that before. That's why you go on Omar and the Passionate Few. The early days, though, for me weren't even AdSense revenue. It was more speaking opportunities,
Right.
even some brand opportunities where I got pulled into, one of my first speaking gigs from YouTube was speaking in Brunei, and they had me as like the keynote speaker in Brunei,
Wow.
and flying me over and all of this like 6-star hotel and all this crazy treatment just for this person who's kind of making videos.
Yeah.
And so I got a lot more speaking and branding opportunities and business deals more than AdSense, as I remember. I don't know if it was because maybe AdSense wasn't out on YouTube videos, or maybe it just wasn't a big deal.
Right.
I don't remember when YouTube AdSense actually started becoming anything significant. But it definitely can be now. There's one guy who I remember connecting with. He's got a sizable channel, and I said, dude, just turn on your AdSense. Just turn it on. Like, he just didn't want to have ads on his channel. Just turn it on.
Yeah.
He's like, for a month, try it. And he made 20K that month. He's like, see, now let's optimize it and work on it. And like, let's put some mid rolls. And now he's over 6 figures a month on YouTube ads. On top of having his business. That's not even his business. Like, he's selling the memberships and the courses and all that kind of stuff. And so I love seeing YouTube as a way for anybody who's thinking about getting into it. It might be your whole thing. There's people who just want to be YouTubers. I think it's the number one job choice that kids want these days, is I want to be a YouTuber.
Yeah.
So you can do that. Or if you already have an existing business.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Listen, we'll get right back to the video in a sec, but I just want to let you know that if you're watching this video and you're enjoying it, good, because that's exactly why we make these videos. And also, if you're a 7 to 8 figure entrepreneur and you're looking to grow your business with videos just like this, but maybe don't know how, or you've tried stuff and you're stuck, but you don't want to leave money on the table, and you want content to be a part of your strategy, you just don't know how to grow that brand, grow your revenue, create videos, and scale your revenue with it, well, you're in luck, because we actually specialize in helping 7, 8, and 9 figure entrepreneurs do exactly that. So if you'd like to learn from those strategies and get a free personalized one-on-one session 100% free, you can simply book a call at the link in the description down below to learn more, and hop on a call with our team to see how we might be able to help you. So anyways, just want to hop on here, let you guys know that, and thank you guys. But with no further ado, let's get right back to the show. Enjoy.
YouTube can definitely supplement it. And I love it because it can be a profit center for you, where every other social channel is an investment, but you don't get paid by it. If you're posting on Instagram, you can make sales from it, but Instagram's not paying you to make content.
Correct.
Where YouTube, they do. They pay you to make content, and your content also lives forever. That Instagram post that you put up last week, nobody cares about anymore, but the YouTube video of Manny Koshman from 2 years ago, still getting views, still getting traffic, still building your brand. And so that's why I'm super excited about YouTube and where it still has high potential going forward.
I love it, man. Now, how have you seen YouTube change algorithmically, right? There's that famous concept, right? Because a lot of people are getting into the space, particularly as our audience is, entrepreneurs in business, marketing, and entrepreneurship. How have you seen the algorithm change? Because, we know, for example, not to make it, too zoomed in on AdSense, but there's a correlate between, the more people are engaging with your videos, the more it's related to, for example, topics in a niche that people bid on, you're more likely to create traffic, attract your ideal audience, and generate ad revenue. For example, 1 million views of you pranking your friend is not gonna, be equal to the amount of 1 million views of, teaching business or marketing or tech strategy or, whatever it is. So over the years, since you've been in this decade plus at this stage, how have you seen the algorithm evolve, and kind of what tips can you give to people about how to think about the algorithm?
Yeah, so I would probably split that into 2 questions. One, just how to rank in the algorithm and get views on your video, and then the other is how do you make more money from the videos that are getting viewed. So to start with, for the algorithm part, YouTube really cares about keeping people on the platform, and they care about the watch time, basically. At the end of the day, what they care about is, are people watching YouTube? Their goal is, we want people on YouTube all day long. How do we make that happen? So if you know that that's their goal, you think, okay, how can I engineer that for my audience so people are going to stick on YouTube? So a couple of things that have pivoted, I guess, even in the past 12 months, longer form videos for sure. The recommendation used to be that I would give to people is 10 to 15-minute videos, which seem to be long. If you go back, if you think, most people think, well, people on social media have such a short attention span and they're not going to watch a 10-minute video. I remember one of my videos I posted was 6.5 minutes long, and the people at the time were said, nobody's going to watch a 6-minute video. You're crazy. You don't understand how the internet works, is what one of them told me. So I've always said 10 to 15 minutes is a good, at least as a minimum, with no upper minimum, no upper maximum. But what we're seeing is actually the biggest growth is in the hour plus category, which actually primes you up for a lot of success because you have long form content. And so how can you get to an hour plus range for your interviews? It could be interviews like what you're doing. It could be thought leadership where you're taking people down into a deep dive. It's so counterculture because people are used to just the quick hits of inspiration. And that's what Instagram and TikTok and everything else is for. Like, you go to Instagram, not really to learn. You go to Instagram to get inspired. How much you're going to say in a 1-minute video? Not that much. It's just showing off the car or some quick ideas on a whiteboard. And IGTV, unfortunately, never really took off. It was supposed to be the YouTube killer, the long form, version is going to crush YouTube, but it never really took off. And people don't want to sit on Instagram for an hour watching one thing, but they will on YouTube. So if you are good at what you do, and either, with you, who's asking great questions, you've already asked me questions and nobody's ever asked me, and we're only, a few minutes in, or you're a thought leader or expert, you're a teacher, to dive deeper into the content. A lot of people who make the transition from Instagram to YouTube actually get exposed because they don't have a depth of knowledge. So they can't speak for an hour on a topic. Where if you look at some of your guests, Grant Cardone and Ed Milet and Manny and all these people, they could go for days and never repeat themselves. And so if that's you, if you have a big depth of knowledge, YouTube is a great home to be, but going longer for sure. Longer. So 1 to 3 hours is now what I'm recommending to people. That's hard. It's hard to do because it takes a lot of time and you have to be really good at what you do. But that's definitely been a shift.
And there's also creative ways to think about it because, for me, like when I originally started, the goal was to do day in the lives. And the original idea for the Passionate Few was I didn't know what I want to do with my career. So in an inspired, inebriated state one night, I wrote down this idea that I didn't even think about how to fund it. I just said, well, I don't know what I want to do. There's probably millions or hundreds of millions of people who don't know what they want to do, with their life or career around the world. So what if I did day in the life videos with every single profession? And that was my idea for the channel, right? So imagine a 10-minute video with a day in the life of a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, an entrepreneur, right? A car salesman, right? And then my vision was that the channel would be a hub for people to see what it's like, because you could say, I want to be a lawyer because you think you're going to be a cool guy, in a courtroom, when in reality, that's, 10% of what being a lawyer actually is. So that was my idea. But when we tried to film it, it was so complex and rigorous. And I realized sitting down with the guy interviewing him was much more enjoyable. And it turns out that it took a month to get up a 10-minute edit for a day in the life, but it took an hour to get a 1-hour interview. So you see what I'm saying? It was about, sometimes long format content, you can be strategic, whether it's interviews or other things. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a full, don't be intimidated by the fact that longer format means it's going to take you longer to make it. In fact, sometimes if you're creative, it won't. Kind of like your videos, right? Like how you guys repurpose content and can do it at length. Like that was really smart. How have you seen, and I'm really curious, how have you seen the business, entrepreneurship, and marketing niche explode on YouTube over the last few years? I mean, is it a trend do you think there's such thing as, it being too saturated? Do you think there's such thing as like, maybe, too many people are doing this, I want to pivot? What are your thoughts on that?
It's exploded. I don't think we're anywhere close to saturation. I think the way to think about it is, how many people want to be entrepreneurs right now?
Everybody.
It's like the whole world almost, at least, North America, right? Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. And it's way more possible now than maybe for our parents. My parents, you had to be crazy to be an entrepreneur. It was just so hard. So you had to be really crazy and not be able to get a job, be basically unemployable or be some genius visionary to want to go and be an entrepreneur, where most people just couldn't do it. But now it's just so easy that everybody wants to go off and do it. So you've got this giant demand of people who want to become entrepreneurs now, right? It's the number one choice, right? When I say YouTuber, it's still entrepreneur. Okay, where are you going to go to learn that? Because your high school, your university marketing classes are not very current,
Right.
and are not very up to date, and are not going to really help you. And the people who are teaching them mostly don't know anything about online digital marketing right now. I remember when I was in university at 19, this is, 20 years ago, thinking my university teacher didn't know anything about running a business. I was already running my company, and I knew more than my university prof who was teaching me about entrepreneurship.
Right.
And so, university is great if you want to go be a doctor or a lawyer, an accountant, or some professional designation where it doesn't change that often. But staying on top of online marketing is not where you go to university for. So there's this giant demand, and where's the education coming from? Even a book, like I have a book. I got a couple of books. The books takes a year to write, and then another 6 months to get out. By the time it's in somebody's hand, the information in the book is already at least 18 months old. So if I was to make a book on YouTube, it'd be totally different in 18 months. So the advice is already out of date. So it's why people are going to YouTube now to learn about these things. I think some of the other things you can still teach in classes and from books, but anything that's shifting really quickly, you want the most recent up-to-date information.
Yeah.
So everybody's just going to YouTube to learn how to do entrepreneurship, online marketing, set up their digital business, etc. If you look at who's teaching it, go type any keyword in. This is my passion, is trying to get more people who I respect on the platform. I've had a hand in helping a lot of different people get their YouTube channels up and running, some of the biggest names, because I want to see them sharing more of their content. Where is a space oversaturated? Go type in what you think you're an expert at, what you want to share, and then just look at the people who are showing up. One, there's probably not that many different unique people. And then two, what they're sharing probably isn't over the top fantastic, right? It's like, I could do better than that.
Right.
And so there's this giant demand and very thin supply that I don't see getting massively disrupted anytime soon. And across every category, not just entrepreneurship and thought leadership, but for every single business, for doctors, for vets, for dog walkers, for people who grow plants, like anything where you could teach people how to do something. Every single category, there's exploding demand as people are trying to figure out how to do things on their own, and very thin supply, especially quality supply, that's available. So it's next couple of years for sure, tons of opportunity.
And one interesting thing I'm curious about too is one time I heard someone say, if you think YouTube's saturated now, imagine in 10 or 15 years, if you don't start participating now, imagine how much more saturated it'll be then, in terms of the tools that will be at our disposal to be able to use to, create content. I wanted to ask you, how do you see, for example, because you've done a ton of research, right? I know, how many channels do you have at this stage on YouTube, or have you tested?
My own, probably 20. In the network of people who've helped, I don't know, a lot. How many tests have we done? Got to be over 10,000 now in terms of thumbnails, titles, all that kind of stuff. And to, YouTube being saturated, it's been around for a long time. It just hasn't been an educational platform for a long time.
True.
It was entertainment. It was pure entertainment. And now it's moved to education as well. So there's still a giant land grab out there available in every niche, every industry for you to be the expert in.
If you were starting a YouTube channel from scratch today, for people who might be watching, whether they're, pre-established entrepreneurs, or this YouTube is going to be their first foray into entrepreneurship, what would you do differently? What would be some things on your mind? And, what would be Evan Carmichael's, after 10,000 experiments, what would be your, 90-day game plan, so to speak, depending on the niche?
Right. What a great question. Well, first, you pick a niche that you actually care about and you love. That's got to be it. Because if you do anything in entrepreneurship, you're not absolutely obsessed with it, you're just not going to have success. And I know that that's a message that in all your interviews, people keep saying some kind of variation of that, right? Like you actually have to love the thing. So I loved how you even started yours of, okay, I don't know what I want to do in my life, so I'm going to go talk to people who are doing it. Expect a pivot. So you did, it's day in the life. Oh my God, this is way harder to film than I thought. But if I just sit down with them, I can get some great questions out. And what I love about yours is too, you ask questions that you personally care about.
Right.
So it's not just what you think your audience is going to care about, but you almost turn them into coaching sessions for Omar, which is great. That it makes it actually more interesting and enjoyable for somebody watching as well. So whatever you're curious about to start to explore that, I think you need to determine, are you the expert or are you on your journey to discover, right? So at the beginning, you weren't the expert. So it's not Omar coming on to say, okay, here's how you have success in entrepreneurship, or here's how you ask great questions, because he hadn't done any of that yet. So it's just showcasing the journey and you being curious to ask great questions. But now you've gone through it. Now you could make those videos. Now you could say, hey, here's how you get great guests. Here's how you ask great questions. Here's how you get comfortable in front of the camera. Right. So evaluating where you are at, are you the expert or are you the beginner? The beginner shows more of the journey to become the expert. The expert is the expert. So it's sharing your knowledge and information. And as you go on that trail of becoming, you start to adjust some of your content. So maybe it's all 100% journey of, but then as you start getting better, you start injecting more teaching. So it's 20% teaching and 40% teaching and eventually 80, 100% teaching, because you become so good at what you're doing. And then I'd say just figure out how you can stay consistent. This is one of the biggest things that people mess up on, is they're just not making enough content. Once a week is bare minimum. Bare minimum. Like you need to have a plan for at least once a week to have a video up. If you're not consistent at all, then once a week is your entry point. If you're at once a week, you go 3 times a week. If you're at 3 times a week, you go daily, and make that your ambitious plan. Because somebody who hasn't even started to think about daily content is overwhelming, impossible, not going to happen. So just think about once a week. But think about it. If this is a skill that you want to develop, if you're only practicing it once a week, it's really hard to get good at anything.
Right.
Michael Jordan wasn't just practicing once a week. So the consistency helps you with the YouTube algorithm and having more content up. Every video you have up has a chance to blow up and make your name, but it also trains you to get better. After all your interviews, if you go back to interview 1, 2, 8.
Oh, it's so embarrassing. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. You're just way better because you've done so many interviews over the life of this channel. And so, you have to some point put in the reps. You can learn, you can model success. You can see what Tim Ferriss asks or Joe Rogan or whoever your heroes are. You can ask those questions, but just because you have Joe Rogan's questions, it doesn't make you Joe Rogan. You still have to ask the questions, have the confidence, and find your style. And that comes by putting in the reps. So if you're only doing once a week, it's just really hard to get good at any skill. So that would be the start point for a game plan.
And then in terms of elements to look out for, we know there's thumbnail, title, keywords. Can you just kind of zoom in for people who are maybe taking notes? And I highly encourage you guys to take notes, and we'll put a link in the description for people to follow Evan and kind of learn more. But what are some things to look out for? People have a pen and paper on what they should focus on. What are the metrics that matter on YouTube?
So the 2 things that will matter besides consistency are getting people to click on your video, and then the people who are clicking on the video, getting them to watch the video. So for that second part, length is great. If we want an hour plus ideally, but at least 10 minutes on our videos. The first minute really, really, really matters. If you can hook people in on the first minute, they'll stick around and they'll watch. If you can't hook them in the first minute, they're gone. They're going to go somewhere else. Right. So this is where a lot of people who create YouTube channels struggle, because they spend so much time making this amazing video, but because the intro sucked, people bounce, and you look at the retention, you see, oh, you've lost 40% or 60% or 80% of the people, in the first 30 seconds. It doesn't matter how long the video is, how good something happens at the 30-minute mark. That first minute is really, really important. So what you want to aim for is 70% retention at 1 minute. That's a hard number to hit, especially consistency, or with if you're consistently putting out content. So you obsess over how you start the videos. So on an interview show like this, usually the best thing to do is pull the highlight moments and put that at the beginning, the coming ups.
Yeah.
Because the start of an interview usually is not very good. You're getting to know somebody, you're building rapport, you're backstorying, and then somewhere, the 15-minute mark, something crazy happens. That's what you pull to the front. People will put crazy music on, or their flashy intro that takes 30 seconds to tell people how great they are. Like, don't do any of that stuff. You could see it. You look at your retention curves and you'll see that it drops off dramatically and people aren't paying attention. So if you don't have, that's what quality is. Quality isn't even about how good your camera is or how good the lighting is. It's really quality of thought, at least inside thought leadership, right? That's what we're talking about. If you're a cinematographer, your stuff better be beautiful. I mean, that's your job. You're supposed to be a good cinematographer. But if you're a thought leader expert, they're not watching you for your thumbnail. They're not watching you for your lower thirds or your music or your intro. They're watching you for the thoughts. You think differently. Teach me how to think like you think. So paying attention to that first minute is really important. You want to assume that people don't know who you are.
Correct. Yeah.
So if you're only talking to people who know you, we're not growing.
Right.
So every video, assume they have no idea who you are.
This is their first video ever of you. Yeah.
Exactly. First time they're meeting Omar. First, what's this passionate few thing? And you want them to be so impressed in the first minute that then they want to watch the rest of the video. And then they go check out the rest of your channel and say, man, that Omar guy was awesome. He has some great questions. Who else has he had an interview with? And then they want to dive down to the channel, right? So the first minute really, really matters. Most people will mess it up, or they'll say something like, hey guys, welcome back. It's me, Evan. Wow, thank you for coming on my channel. Happy Friday. It's so great. Like, goodbye. Who cares? Like, they're out. That's great for people who know you already. But if you're not making videos for your mom. You're making videos for people who don't know who you are yet. And so the first minute really, really matters. If you don't have good retention on your videos, there's nothing you can do with thumbnails or titles or anything that will save you. So good quality video, but especially that first minute to hook them in. Now, so that's how to get people to watch. How do we get them to click? The click is a combination of your title and your thumbnail. And most people think of YouTube as a search engine. And it is, and it's the world's second largest search engine. You hear that all the time. But most of the views on YouTube don't come from search. It comes from what's being suggested to you.
Yeah.
In either browse, that's on your homepage, or suggested at the bottom of every video, you see a whole list of other videos. That's where you want to rank. 70% of the videos that get recommended, that's where all the views come from. So the big channels blow up not from search, but from the ones that get recommended. Okay, so how do I show up in recommended now? Well, first one is to show up against your own videos. That's step one. So how do you do that? Well, you have a consistency in a thumbnail design. So if you go to any of my channels, you know what an Evan Carmichael thumbnail looks like.
Right. There's that paper plane, the yellow paper plane.
You got the plane, you got the fonts, you got a face, you want to have you don't want to be exactly the same every time, but I should know what a thumbnail from your channel looks like. Because what's going to happen is if I'm on your channel, I click on the Manny Coachman interview. It's like, wow, that was awesome. I love this guy. Maybe down the side is the Grant Cardone, Ed Milet interview that you did, which was epic.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorites. But maybe because it has a different thumbnail, they don't click on it because they don't recognize it as being you. If the Manny one is so different than the Ed and Grant one, they're not going to click on it because they don't know it's you. Even though I just watched your whole video with Manny and I love it, I'm not clicking on the next one because I don't recognize that it's your channel. Right. So we have to have some consistency in the thumbnail design to encourage people to start to click more.
And it builds that trust with the brand, the thumbnail brand, if you will, right? At a certain level.
It builds a trust. More importantly, it builds the recognition so that I look forward to the next, Omar video that comes out, as well as I can recognize them down the side.
For example, like a Impact Theory with their like baby blue kind of color in the background where it's a little different, but you kind of get the same template every time. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the same font. It's the same color scheme. It's a different face on the front. Maybe it's Tom, maybe it's one of his guests, but you know what an Impact Theory video looks like.
Right.
And so that's the goal, to start to create your own template. So if you just watched Impact Theory for the first time and you clicked on this baby blue thing because Omar said it was a good channel, I was like, okay, whatever, I'll watch one. Like, oh, I like Tom, that's cool. You see the baby blue down the side, you're going to click on that again because you know that that's Tom. right? So that's how you start showing up against your own videos. We need a consistency in the style. For the titles, the thing that matters is not ranking for a search term, it's ranking after other people's videos, with the rare exception of channels where you don't want people to subscribe to you. So, you want people to subscribe to The Passionate Few.
Right.
So many great conversations. We want people to subscribe to you. Your pivot actually makes a ton of sense, because if you were just showing day in the life of, that's a harder channel to subscribe to.
Right.
Because maybe I don't care about a doctor's day in the life and a vet's day in the life. And I only care about these 3 industries. So I'll watch your channel, but I won't subscribe to it.
Right.
Or something like how to unclog a toilet. You're probably not going to subscribe to that channel.
Right.
Probably. I work with a guy who's he has how to pass a driving test.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically his channel, and in all the different states and the different rules and motorcycle versus car. That's not a channel you subscribe to.
Right.
I just want to pass my test, so teach me how to do it in California on a motorcycle. Right. That's it. So
right.
Ranking in search matters a lot for him, because he doesn't care about subscribers. For most people, we care about subscribers. We want returning viewers. We want returning people coming to our channel. So what you want to think about is, how do I have similar titles to the videos that are already ranking? So if you were going to have Tom Bilyeu on your channel, you'd look at what are some other Tom Bilyeu videos, interviews that have done well, and then what can I title my video to hopefully show up after that?
Right.
So for you doing, guest channels or guest interviews, you just had Chris Voss on, right? The expert FBI negotiator. I love that guy.
Yeah.
So what you could do is look at where else has Chris been on, and Impact Theory and Ed Milet and wherever he's been on, and see which videos have performed the best, and then see what those titles are. And your goal is not to rank for the term Chris Voss. Your goal is to rank after the Tom Bilyeu interview.
Gotcha. Yeah. That's a good idea. I'm going to definitely tell my team about that. I like that. Yeah.
And you can do that by taking similar title to what Tom's was.
What worked. Yeah.
Yeah. Now you also have to match the, you have to match the theme to what you're promising. So if you're going to, Tom's was how to negotiate like an FBI hostage negotiator, and you're going to call your video something similar, that should also be one of your questions. So
right.
Say, how do you negotiate like an FBI hostage? So it's like the first thing that you say, and then he answers. You can use that in your coming ups as well.
Right. Yeah.
So now if we have a similar title, text on the thumbnail, and lead of the video, you're much more likely to get people to click and to watch.
And deliver on the promise at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah. So whenever you're doing interviews, I would look at what are the biggest titles for those people that you're interviewing, and then how can you ask those questions inside your video. And things like, sometimes just the word choice makes a big difference.
Right.
Inspiration versus motivation can make a big difference, where it may just sound like the same thing, right? Like maybe interchangeable for you and used for me, but there's a video that used motivation, and that's the one I want to try to rank after. So I should ask a question that says motivation in it instead of inspiration. Can dramatically increase how many views you get on your video.
And just to add to that point, I remember there was a time I had interviewed the creator of Hot Cheetos. Actually, Tom just had him on the show, Mr. Montañez. And it was so interesting because I actually had learned this from you. I had seen an interview you did. I forget if it was with Jordan Belfort on the Wolf of Wall Street or a different one, but you were talking about how YouTube is one of the most powerful platforms because it gives you more analytics than any other platform. So YouTube gives you all the data on the back end so that you can use it and leverage it. And most people don't. Most people really don't use those analytics. And so we went and changed. I think we adjusted just the thumbnail and the title ever so slightly. I mean, literally, it was a matter of a few words. And that video, literally that month alone, went from 40,000 views to 200,000 views. It literally 5x'd, and the video didn't change at all.
Yeah.
And so that just goes to show, just to illustrate for people watching, just how important, the little nuances can be and why it's so important to test, right? Because you said you've done 10,000 tests at this point. Is there any other findings that, people would find interesting where you're like, holy cow, like I didn't think something so subtle could have such a, big impact at scale?
Yeah. So thumbnails make a big difference for getting people to click. So the title thumbnail combination is interesting. So the title really matters to try to rank after somebody else's video. So, the guy that was just on Tom's channel was on yours. It goes from, janitor from the hood to then, super successful. You could see you should be ranking. He hasn't done a million interviews. Right. So you should be ranking. You go to Tom's channel in incognito mode, load Tom's interview. You should be down the side. If you're not, I'd be changing our title to give us a chance to show up after Tom's interview. Right. So the best way to show up after that is having a similar title. The thumbnail is what gets people to click. The title will give you a chance of showing, but it doesn't mean people will click on your interview. The thumbnail is where people will then click. Most people design a thumbnail on a giant screen, desktop, looks beautiful, tons of little elements. And then most of the consumption is on the phone, and it's this tiny little thing, and you can't even see what's going on in there. And so, especially when you're using either your face, that's what we get known for, or you're using an interview with somebody, I have to be able to recognize the face. I can't tell you how many interviews I've seen on other channels where the face is impossible to see because they're just so far out. It's like the full body shot. Like, but who is that guy? That's Grant Cardone, dude. Like, he's so recognizable. Put him big. Or they're wearing hats and sunglasses, and it could be anybody, right? And so the thumbnail really, really, really matters. What we tend to find works the best. And if anybody's trying to figure this out, like, just go to my channel and you'll see the best practice of what I think works right now after all our tests. But really close up on the head, like the Hollywood headshot, where you're even cutting off the top of the head. Line a text on the thumbnail on the side. So usually face on the right side, text on the left side. And I've never been able to win with a thumbnail that had no text. Having some kind of value built in to the thumbnail text, not being the same text as the title text. You have two shots to win, right?
Right.
So think about a landing page. You have a headline and a subheadline. You never make your headline and subheadline exactly the same. So don't make the thumbnail text and the headline text exactly the same. Sometimes people get overly, they put their brand too forward. It doesn't matter the name of your show. Don't put the name of your show big and bright. Put the value that I'm going to have. The name of the person, we've completely taken it off the thumbnail. So what am I going to get? So what if you're going to have Chris Voss on your channel, like, what am I going to learn from this? I assume I know Chris Voss, but assume I don't know Passionate Few yet. This is going to be my first experience. What do you have to put on the thumbnail? So Passionate Few in a thumbnail is not going to bring me in because I don't know what that is yet. Yet. But then the text on the thumbnail, what is Chris going to teach me that I need to learn? So we want to start thinking about, so text on the thumbnail on the left, we'll do 3 to 4 lines, one solid color, but then an accent color for one of the words, big face on the right, some kind of expression ideally in the face, not just a boring LinkedIn profile picture, standard picture, but if you can get a screen cap from the video, usually does really well.
And ideally looking straight, right? Like not looking off to the side or looking at the words. Have you found variation different?
Yeah, that's good. I love it, dude. I love it. Nobody asked you this. That's great. Yeah. Looking straight or looking towards the text, but not looking away from the text. It's a big deal because a lot of people will have it text on one side, face here, but then the person's looking that way. Well, your eyes follow the person's eyes. So they're not looking at the thumbnail anymore. They're looking somewhere over here. But if you have their face looking towards the text, they're more likely to see the message. So that can really work. Just make sure if it's side profile that it's on an angle, not like this, because then it can be harder to recognize who the person is if it's just side feature.
Right.
Yeah.
And what about when it comes to, for example, things like highlight clips, right? And obviously, for our channel and a lot of YouTubers and podcasters and people doing interviews, you see people like Joe Rogan, Logan Paul, where they have a channel doing interviews and then another one doing highlights. And for people watching, this can be molded or emulated in your own stuff if you're filming long format content and want to take out segments. What have you seen in terms of, when is the right time to break up a channel versus keep it on the same channel? I'm sure you've experimented with both. What have you seen with that stuff?
Most clip channels don't work. Rogan definitely has. Most people who tried to copy them haven't. One of the big reasons why Rogan has worked is if you look at his clip channel, and I don't know how many are still up. I don't know if he's still doing his clip channel after the whole Spotify deal, but his clips could be 25 minutes.
Right.
Right?
Yeah,
Like
because
he's doing
his interviews are like 3 hours, 4 hours. Yeah.
So when you look at now, not all of his clips were that long, but a lot of his clips were 10 minutes plus. Where people make the mistake is they're doing clips and they're all super short. You know, it's like a 2-minute clip. Man, is it impossible to rank a 2-minute video? It's just really hard unless you're doing your like Star Wars trailer, crazy, you know, over the top. But thought leadership, 2-minute video, really, really hard to rank. So clips channels are usually not a good idea unless you can get 10 minutes plus on each one. It's interesting to see what happens with shorts and stories as well. So those are some options that I would explore with. Why I would move off of my main channel, and I've done it, you know, we've got 20 channels or so. I would move off of my main channel for 2 reasons. One, you're already at 1 a day. So if you're making 1 video a day and you can still make more, then I would go have multiple channels. Because when you get over 1 a day, you will really start to hurt yourself and browse because it's just videos stepping on each other. The second is it's a different audience. So I have a Russian channel has 600,000 subscribers and a Spanish channel that has 600,000 subscribers or something like that. It's a different audience. People are going to watch my Russian channel. If I put Russian videos on my main channel, they would never go anywhere because most of my audience doesn't speak Russian.
And are they subtitles or actually dubbed?
Dubbed. Yeah. Subtitles don't work.
So you found an agency that you can outsource it to that does it?
Yeah, my team. Yeah, I mean, I basically partnered with people. What do we have now? We have Russian, Spanish. Russian was the first one, then Spanish, and those ones have done well. And then we launched French and Japanese. Captions don't work.
Yeah,
captions just don't work. Even in English, captions don't work. We tested 700 something videos, captions, full captions, English. Couldn't prove that it made a difference. And captions in multiple languages don't make a difference, but dubbing does. So if you can dub it, even just think, is there anybody in your community who can even do it for you? And it can even be UN style dubbing, which means UN just means they make it, you keep the English video behind and it's really low on the audio. And then the person's talking over them. Like if you were going to watch a really boring UN event, they translate as they go and is a little bit behind. So you can still hear them in English, but then they're dubbing on top versus full on dubbing, which is what they do. I'm half Italian. So in Italy, they dub all of the English movies and they try to match the mouth movements. And that's just like way more expensive than UN style dubbing. A good way to do it is just look at your channel analytics and see where your audience is. And if you're getting lots of people from Spain or from Russia or from Germany or from France, especially the higher paying, you know, if you're trying to monetize it, if you go Hindi, you could probably get a lot of people, but the ad market isn't there.
Right.
So it's good for accessibility, but bad in terms of that's probably going to be a big cost center for you. So yeah, dubbing definitely works. Or if you wanted to launch a Omar interview tips, Omar teaching you how to be comfortable in front of the camera, Omar the thought leader channel, that's a different audience and people who are coming to learn from these experts that you're bringing on. So that could be a separate channel.
Now, what about people? Because I know I've had this. What about people who go, oh, but the anxiety of like, I don't want to start from zero on a new channel. I've already, spent weeks or months or years building this one. Have you seen that? And sort of how do you recommend people combat that? Just, think long term.
I mean, I did it. Yeah. I mean, I did it. I went from 3 videos a day on my main channel to then splitting it up into multiple channels and then even more channels. A channel wins based off the audience. So if you wanted to start a gardening channel or gardening series, now we're going way outside of something probably you would do, but if you wanted to start gardening content, well, people who sign up for Passionate Few, some people might like it because they love Omar and they'll just love everything you do. But most people probably wouldn't want to watch the Omar gardening show.
Right.
And so what will happen is you put out an Omar gardening show and those videos tank. People unsubscribe from the channel.
Yeah.
But then some people might subscribe to the Omar, like they love that Omar gardening series. Like, oh my God, I didn't know you could do that with a watermelon. That's amazing, Omar. But then you put out a video with Grant Cardone. They're like, what's that? I don't care about that. Teach me more about watermelon gardening, because it's two totally separate audiences. Those videos tank and can tank your whole channel. So it's better to think about, okay, if it's completely different kind of content, I have to put it to a different channel. The only exception would be if you said, you know what, Evan, I never want to do another interview again. Like, I hate interviewing. I'm done. Passion Few is over. I want to do watermelon gardening. Then I would just swap it, because you never want to do this content again. You carry whoever you bring with you, and now you're the watermelon guy. Awesome.
Yeah. You just commit to the pivot fully.
Yeah. If you're just done with it and you want to move on, otherwise it's better to have a different channel. So if it's a different audience, it's a different channel. Like a different language, it's a different audience. Even though it's still motivation and still entrepreneurship, if it's a different language, it goes to a different channel because it's a different audience.
One more question I have before we touch on, your advice for finances real quick. And I know we're coming up on time here. Is, let's say, for example, somebody's creating content, but their view duration is lower than the content they're creating. So for example, just full transparency, our interviews can be anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour. And our view duration time can hover from 18 minutes to 25 minutes, which is pretty phenomenal compared to, over the spectrum of YouTube. Yep. But that means that a good chunk of people are not even seeing half the interview. Would I, for example, in that situation, be better off taking a 1 hour interview and maybe splitting it up? Like, I don't know if you're familiar with Vlad TV or DJ Vlad or something like that. Would I be better in a situation like that where I cater to the view duration, or in that circumstance, is it better to be longer? Do you kind of get what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely better to be longer. What's going to happen is if you cater to the view duration, if you have an 8-minute average view duration, you make an 8-minute video and it's going to be a 3-minute view duration.
That's true, yeah.
If I'm you, I would look at, I'm Evan Carmichael giving advice to Omar, and I haven't looked at your data and analytics, but just from an outside perspective, the 3 things I would look at: 1, more content, because you're asking great questions and you have access to some great people, but it's not consistently going up. That if you committed to doing, I don't know what you're at now, like once a week or every 2 weeks.
Yeah. Well, with COVID, it kind of put us on a little bit of threw off the trend a little bit with the in-person. So we were doing them through Zoom, but now we're 1 a week, but we're scaling it up to 2 or 3 a week.
Yeah. So like that's great. Like, and less on the editing or whatever is preventing you from doing 3 a week, that you can just show up for an hour and sit in your chair and ask great questions. You'll start to win. Zoom is great. I think people will still do Zoom even post COVID. So it gives you another option to reach people who may not, be traveling close to you, or you then have to hop a flight and take 3 days and whatever to do your interview. So frequency for sure. Thumbnail consistency, test, and then find what's the winning formula and then update your old videos. Yeah. So and split test them. Don't just say, okay, this is it. Like, we run a test to see this one did better or worse, because there's probably a lot of hidden gold in some of your older content that you could blow up. Just like that one you talked about that now went 20,000 views a day or whatever. That could happen repeatedly because you have great content. If you had garbage interviews, it's like, okay, don't worry about Omar, but your stuff is great and deserves to have more eyes on it. And that's a function of the thumbnails and the titles to some extent too. And then really dialing in that first minute. How many videos have you done on your channel?
Oh man, hundreds. I got to check.
I would look back, and like, YouTube analytics is awesome. It's also overwhelming. There's so much data there that a lot of people look at it. And if you don't love numbers, like, what the heck? Like, I don't want to look at this, and then just space out. So don't worry about all of the numbers and all the data, and you can slice and dice. And I love all that kind of stuff, but I recognize that it's overwhelming for most people. The only thing that matters is your audience retention curve. So you look at that and see, where am I at 1 minute? And look at some of your videos and see which are the highest performing 1 minute benchmarks. Look at your most popular ones and look at like past 90 days, not just how well it did 2 years ago. Who cares? But like recent past 90 days, what's the 1 minute and which videos have done the best? And what can you learn from them? So you might find that when somebody says, hi, I'm Evan Carmichael and I'm one of the passionate few. maybe that does really well, or maybe that tanks,
Mm-hmm.
right? And being willing to let go of some of the branding part of it to say, the Mark Randolph one, I know you had, he kind of summarized, hey, I'm Mark Randolph. I'm one of the passionate few. And today we're going to talk about XYZ, why it's such a great interview. And then you come on and you're outside and you're saying why it's so good. And then you're inside. Look at how that did.
Mm-hmm.
Was that awesome? And if yes, and every guest you're doing it for, or did it tank? It's like, okay, I'm never doing that again. Maybe you just do the coming ups, or maybe you do a different intro, or maybe you just go right into the interview, like just playing with the format to get that 1 minute, because there's probably a whole bunch of learnings you can have from ones that you've already done, as well as looking at other interview channels. I mean, I do some interviews, but you're looking at Valuetainment and Tom Bilyeu and when Grant has guests on, like those kinds of people. How do they start it? And then play with that for a week and see, look at the data.
Perfect. And then last question I have real quick, I know you got to run, is, what are things to look out for monetization wise in 2021, going into 2022 and beyond? What are the ways to monetize off YouTube that you're seeing working? Anything?
Okay, so a couple of things. One, for keywords, so different topics will pay different amounts. If you're just looking at AdSense, and AdSense is usually the easiest way to get started. YouTube has thousands of people out there selling ads against your videos. So give them good content that they can go off and sell ads against. Makes it easier for everybody. If you go to Google Keyword Planner, you can type that into Google and it'll show up, Google Keyword Planner. It'll show you for different keywords how much you can expect to make. You can even filter by YouTube. Like on YouTube, here's how many searches it was done, and here's how much advertisers are willing to spend on it. So when people say, how much can I make on a YouTube video? It really depends on your industry. If you're like the watermelon growing channel, it's not going to be a very high paying niche, because you got to think who's targeting watermelon growers, not giant companies. But on the passionate few, who's targeting entrepreneurs? You got banks, you got credit card companies, you got financial institutions, like you got so many companies that are trying to target. So it'll show you. You can type in any keyword and it'll show you what you need to do. But even in your category, so I was helping somebody in the recipe category, and when she just typed recipes, man, it was nothing. Like you're getting pennies for 1,000 views. Where you could also do a video, there was Rachel Ray recipes, but then was paying like crazy amounts because people were advertising against Rachel Ray. Now, it then becomes, well, do you have anything that you can say about Rachel Ray recipes? Like, do you like Rachel Ray? Don't just do it because it's going to pay well. You have to have something to actually make.
Or maybe you review her recipes or whatever, or put your own spin on it or whatever the thing is. Yeah.
And it's got to feel right. Like it's within your thing, right? Not just, okay, I'm only doing that to make money, right? Which is, I could take some of my favorite, I love Rachel Ray. I could take some of my favorite recipes and do my version of it and explain how to do it. Like, go do that. So using the Google Keyword Planner tool, and that's free. Again, you just need a Gmail account to get it. Go to Google Keyword Planner, put in your Gmail address, log in, and you can put in any keyword you want, and it'll tell you how much you can expect to get paid for. Next, I'd say, think about how can you get people off of your YouTube channel and onto your email list. So then you could market whatever you have. If you have a book, you have a course, you have a webinar, a workshop coming up, even if you have nothing yet, to be able to get emails for your future plans, right? Right now, if you wanted to have a book deal, the thing they care the most about is your email list. It's about 100,000 right now. Like if you have 100,000 people on your email list, you have a good shot of getting the book deal from being a nobody, like air quotes nobody. Obviously you're somebody, but to the book publishing world, they don't know who you are, your first book. If you got 100,000 people on your email list, you have a good chance to get your own book deal. You may not get paid a lot for it, but you can have a book deal.
And in YouTube videos, one call to action is always better than multiple, right?
So coming ups at the beginning, or some powerful opinion at the beginning. In the middle is a call to action to get your lead magnet. So, if I'm you, I'd probably even do a PDF takeaway from every video. It's a little more work, but if you say, hey, if you want my 3 biggest takeaways from Evan Carmichael in this interview, check the link in the description below.
I saw yours with Steve Jobs. I actually subscribed to that. I remember that back in the day. It was probably like a couple of years ago. Yeah.
Now do that. That was a mistake, and that was at the end of the video. Do it in the middle. So you interrupt your own video, not when you're talking to the guy. I guess you could potentially like, hey, if you want to see my 3 big takeaways, there's a link in the description below. Go check it out. But otherwise you can film that afterwards and inject it. But you put that in the middle of the video. If you put it at the start, nobody's going to watch it. They're going to leave. If you put it at the end, they're going to bounce as well. You put it in the middle because you're giving value, but they know that there's more to the interview to come and you don't lose your attention. So the first line of the description says, get my PDF on XYZ, click here. If you don't want to do it for every guest, then you have one generic. The top 10 things I've learned from all the millionaires and billionaires I've had on my show as a bonus video or PDF, but you have to give your email to get it. So in the middle of every video, you're calling that out. Then they go to your landing page, you get the email address. The call to action at the end of the video is to go watch another video. You have 20 seconds, you got an end card. You use that to say, hey, if you like this interview that I did with Evan, you have to go watch the one I did with whoever, where we talked about XYZ. Whatever the most relevant person is that's already on the channel. So me, maybe you point to Grant Cardone and Ed Milet, because we talked about it. It's like, hey, if you want to see the interview that I did with Ed and Grant that we talked about with Evan, go click right here.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's right there. Go click it. I'll see you there. Not, I'll see you soon. No, thank you for watching. No, don't ask people to subscribe to your channel. Just tell them to go watch that video.
Yeah.
The ask to subscribe to the channel is one of the things that, again, like a best practice that just doesn't work. Think about when the channels that you subscribe to, how many of them were because somebody on the video said, please subscribe to my channel, versus you just really like their content. You watched 4 of their videos and you decided to subscribe, right? Yeah. You subscribe because you watch multiple videos. If somebody, and I don't know what you're doing with your call to action, but if somebody watched 5 Omar interviews, they're going to subscribe to the channel. Right. Versus you saying, please subscribe and support my channel, they're probably not going to do it. So don't waste the time talking about it. Your goal is to get them to watch the next video.
I love it. Evan, thank you so much, man. I know we're over time. We might have to do a round 2 for all the more questions we have, but thank you so much for hopping on, man. And where can people find you if they want to learn more?
Evan Carmichael, wherever you're at, Instagram, YouTube, it's probably easy to find me there.
I love it. We'll put links down below. Thank you for your time, Evan, and wish you more continued success. Thanks for being on.
Much love. Thanks, Omar.